You know, you were all born after this happened, but the World Trade Center was so unbelievably big. I remember when I went and visited one time, I went and stood in between them and I looked up and I was just like, I can't believe how big these things are. They're gigantic. And then they were gone. And all the people in them, and all the people who went to help them.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Jim Friedel in Hoboken said it appeared to bank sharply and smash directly, perhaps purposefully, into, oh my goodness,
oh God,
there's another one. Oh my goodness, there's another one.
This seems to be on purpose.
Oh my goodness,
another plane?
Now it's obvious, I think, that there's a second plane just crashed into the World Trade Center. I think we have a terrorist act of proportions that we cannot begin to imagine at this juncture.
I'm sitting there and I was reading the newspaper because Monday Night Football had been on the night before, so it was just like a normal day. And then I looked up again and I saw this plane smash into the other one. And I was just like, whoa, like this is bad. This is like really bad, to the point where all of a sudden I realized like I had just seen like my worst nightmare, like the boogeyman, all of a sudden like was alive. And it wasn't something that was like buried under your bed or in the closet or something like that. It's just like, this is major.
And for us, again, we're pretty young, so we're not really seeing like the connection of like what the heck this actually means until my mom says, your Uncle Tom does consultation work with the Pentagon, which was one of the other buildings that was hit. And so that's when I really felt like the goosebumps and like the real like, oh shoot, kind of like that emotional connection, because it's like my uncle could be dead. And you know, when's the last time I talked to him? It's been like 2 years since we've seen him, since they live back east. And so that's when it really started to hit me about like the impact of this. And they said that hundreds, if not thousands of people have died as a result of this attack. And so when we got to school that day, usually you'd be pretty excited to see the teacher wheel out the big TV on top of the big stand and whatnot, because you're gonna watch some cool movie, right? But no, my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Ross, she kicked on the news, and that's all we did literally all day. Is we sat and watched just the towers come down and everything. It's hard to put into words.
People don't talk about it, but when those towers collapsed, there were people inside. They weren't empty. And that's what made it so traumatizing, that was the first tower to collapse was the second one to be hit, and they didn't have enough time to evacuate fully. And just picturing all of those people and the firefighters, there weren't any words. And then the second tower collapsed, and no one expected that to happen. And there was this image of two firefighters that were covered in the rubble, and they just hugged each other. And when they did that, all the like rubble and the dust flew off. And my mom looked at me and she told me that this was going to be one of those moments that I needed to remember, that things were never going to be the same. And she was right, and I remember that part so vividly.
It was very surreal. It was almost like I was watching a movie. You know, you didn't really believe that this was happening. And so you watched it over and over and over again because you really couldn't believe that this was actually happening.
What really affected me with 9/11 was the fact that the kids that were left as orphans. It just bothered me. That one accounting firm up in the top of the two towers, a lot of dads were lost, and the stories of the kids, that just really hit me, because my kids at the time were 8 years old, and so it was really hard to watch the stories come in. That might have been the biggest thing. After you got over the shock of what happened and the anger, the sadness, it was just really hard to take.
I had been out of the Marine Corps a few months, and I knew what was coming
In a matter of months, I was recalled to active duty for 2 consecutive years.
I just remember watching it all day long with my wife, and confused, I think, worried, anxious, because you don't know who's doing it or who's behind it or why it's happening. So yeah, it was a very scary moment, I think, at that time for our nation.